Now on to our webinar today. We're very excited to welcome 5 local conservation professionals representing a variety of organizations and careers. Our panel includes Callie Summers. If you want to give a little wave there, Callie. She is the Education Program Coordinator at Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District. Callie is a former teacher from Arizona, where she spent many years teaching junior high and high school science in the local public school system. Since relocating to Cleveland in 2023, she is a proud alumnus of the former Nalcor AmeriCorps program, which helped her transition from the classroom to non-formal environmental education. At Cuyahoga Soil and Water, she's one of 2 youth educators, and she also facilitates community education programs. Outside of work, Kelly enjoys a good cup of coffee, giving thrifted pieces new life, and spending long summer days at Cedar Point. Emily Cow is the incoming executive director at Donebrook Watershed Partnership. Emily, after serving as watershed program manager with the partnership for the past 2 years, Emily's looking forward to deepening collaborations with community partners and watershed residents through Donebrook's work to restore native habitat, improve water quality, and build ecological resilience in Greater Cleveland. Sean Nussel is an associate consultant with Davie Resource Group. Sean focuses on Section 401 and 404 permitting and federal mitigation rule for compensatory mitigation and its application and mitigation banking. He holds his professional wetland scientist certification through the Society of Wetland Scientists, is a certified senior ecologist through the Ecological Society of America, and is a certified ecological resource practitioner through the Society of Ecological Restoration. He also conducts ecological surveys involving water chemistry and macroinvertebrate identification and data analysis. Sean is certified by the Ohio EPA for macroinvertebrate sample collection, identification, and data evaluation, as well as qualitative habitat evaluation index. He also assists with AutoCAD and ArcGIS mapping. He's a graduate of Penn State with both a master's degree in ecology and a bachelor's degree in biology. Albert Jackson is a native plant grower for Holden Forest and Garden Seed Bank. In this role, he grows plants from Ohio ecotype seed collections by Holden staff and partner organizations, supporting ecosystem. So sorry, Albert, I lost
No,
you
it's
on
okay.
here. Where'd you go? Supporting ecosystem restoration projects across the state. His work includes seed collection, mapping plant populations, managing growing spaces, and documenting Ohio's natural areas. Albert is especially motivated by knowing that every plant he grows contributes directly to restoring habitats that support Ohio's native plants and wildlife. And finally, we have our very own Matt Seaford. He is Tinkers Creek Watershed Partners Watershed Coordinator. He brings a diverse background of experience in both the public and private sectors, including work in lake management, public education as park naturalist, and invasive fish management. Matt performs a wide array of duties for TCWP, though is primarily involved in the development and implementation of educational programming, assisting with the coordination of environmental projects and stormwater compliance. Matt has a master's degree in biology from Shippensburg University of Pennsylvania and a bachelor's degree in environmental biology from Pennsylvania West University Clarion. Naturalist both professionally and recreationally, Matt enjoys spending his free time birding, photographing wildlife. You can catch some of his photographs on our website, and ranting about non-native species to anyone unfortunate enough to be within earshot. So, with all of that, we have some AI companions. That's fine. If you want an AI companion, it is in there now. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight each of them so that you can see them as they respond to the questions here. And I do have an array of questions kind of queued up here for our panelists. As I said, if you have a question you'd like to add, please throw it in the chat, or you are always welcome to wait until the end. Am I missing anybody? I think I have all 5 of you spotlit here, so you should be seeing our panelists spotlit on your screen. So we're going to go ahead and start with our first question, just kind of looking at pathways into the field, and we'll start this with you, Matt, and we'll just kind of go around. Feel free to jump in as the rest of you would like. What did your path into your current role look like, and what experiences or decisions mattered more than you expected along the way?
Yeah, so my first position in the field was an internship at Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. I was there for about 3 months working for the Visitors Center. Went back to school, graduated, and then immediately went to grad school because I got a graduate assistantship. So I was there for 2 years with that. Out of grad school, I was with the University of Toledo's grass carp invasive removal team. It was a multi-agency effort that's still going on to keep grass carp from getting into the Lake Erie Basin by targeting the tributaries to the lake. Um, After that ended, because that was another seasonal gig, I took a part-time position with Mill Creek Metro Parks over in Mahoning County, Ohio. I was their part-time educator slash naturalist. Did another about 6 months, and then I found some full-time work up at Aqueduct Lake and Pond Management. I was there for about a year and a half there in the private sector, and then last June, no, 2 Junes ago now, wow, I ended up here. I guess for part two, kind of generic, I guess, but the master's degree really helped more than I guess I could have anticipated. Just sort of being given additional responsibilities right off the bat with some of the roles I landed in. It felt like at times I had a bit more of an accelerated trajectory in my positions just because people could acknowledge what that means and the work and time it took to acquire that. So it was a big boon to my career for sure.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt. Does anybody want to chime in next or
I can go next.
okay, thanks, Sean.
So, I've been in Kent a long time. Kent State University, undergraduate degree. I worked through post-undergraduate, I guess you could say. I had a year gap year in between undergraduate and grad school in a lab. And then I worked in a lab as part of my teaching assistantship for my graduate degree at Kent. Got my master's there. After I got my master's, I worked for a couple semesters as an adjunct at Kent State. Adjunct professors part-time. While I was doing that, I also had a couple of other part-time jobs outside the field, one of which was an auto parts retail store. Um, and I met someone that works at my current employer, Davie Resource Group, coming and buying parts for fleet vehicles. So my biggest takeaway is connections matter. I had no idea that the role I'm in now even existed, and it's less than 2 miles away from where I've worked and have lived. So definitely who you know helps a lot. So that initial interaction, I got an interview and then was hired within a week. So it turned out amazing.
That's awesome. So that
Yeah.
happened while you were working, you said at an auto parts
So I was
store?
part-time in an auto parts store. I was
Okay.
part-time adjunct at Kent State. And I had a third part-time role as well. But yeah.
Yeah,
Going off
impressive
of that,
adjunct.
I
Go
really
ahead, Albert.
um yeah, really agree that it's a lot of like who you know, who you meet. Like my first role right out of college was working for my professor. He offered me a job to study bluff erosion based on core tree coring and the Lake Erie shoreline, which is pretty cool. So there's like so many opportunities that you might not know are there. So just talk to a bunch of people, look online on all the like the job boards and stuff, and you'll find something eventually.
I can second that. I one of my first roles out of college was as an intern at Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District, where I actually happened to meet Callie and we worked together briefly. And that was kind of how I made my way into the field and started to make connections with folks locally here in Cleveland because I moved here after college and didn't really know very many people. And so I started out with that internship and actually through a meeting that I was attending during that internship, a Neopipe meeting for those who know. I met my current and soon to be former boss, Dr. Mo Drinkard. And so we were able to connect, and she happened to be hiring at the time, and everything sort of fell into place. But I agree, being able to make connections with folks matters so much more than you would think.
Yeah, I think this is so cool how like all of our stories are so different, but they kind of all fit together. So I can piggyback off what Emily said, because mine's a little different too. I moved across the country as a former teacher in Arizona. When I got to Cleveland, I knew nobody except for my husband's family that lives here. And so I agree. I want to encourage you. You can make connections no matter where you are, and it doesn't take a lot of them either. I found the NowCore position on a whim at Soil and Water, which is now where I work, and made good connections with the folks I was serving with every day, as well as within different organizations. And that's how I ended up in my current role. So
I love that.
I'm gonna
Do any of you have suggestions for how to get out there and make a connection? I know we have some people that are super early in their career journey.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think volunteering, looking for volunteering opportunities, that's a big thing. There's so many, and you don't really need experience to do much of that. There's like a lot of stuff like bird surveys. You could do stuff for the national parks, like invasive monitoring, things like that. There's tons of different things, and they're a lot of fun too. So.
I think you'd be
Great point.
surprised. Oh, did I
Go
cut
ahead,
you
Matt.
off? I was just gonna say, I think you'd be surprised at the amount of field crews that are typically pretty open to allowing people to kind of tag along and maybe not do the exact work. But I, like in undergrad, I was just emailing people that worked for the Fairview Fish Hatchery in Pennsylvania and was like, can I come process steelhead with you just because it's cool? And they didn't care at all. Like they gave me a set of waders and I was in the stream scooping up uh fish for an afternoon. And a lot of people, like I've had offers to just go electrofishing just because I asked, not because of my job whatsoever. So usually if it doesn't involve putting you in actual danger, or like I tried to get on a Hellbender crew and that got shot down pretty quick because they're state listed. But a lot of people are pretty open to just tag alongs basically.
Anybody else have a fun volunteer example they want to share before we move on?
I think one thing that you can do as, a college student, you get projects for classes and like trying to work with local organizations, either where your university is or where you're planning to, go after university could be a really good way to, start kind of getting your toes into the field because I know organizations like Donebrook were always, open to partnering with college students who want to collect data or want to do something and being able to actually work with someone in the real world for your project can really make a difference later on when you want to have references or have folks help you make connections and things like that.
My personal journey, we had some need for volunteers at Kent State University, and I think a lot of universities have volunteer opportunities, but in my case, it led to part-time employment as an undergrad, which was awesome. So I think there are a lot of cases where you can volunteer and people get to know you, and it can turn into something more.
Oh, and Erica beat me to it. So Erica added our little link for volunteers, but what I'll do is for Cuyahoga Soil, Donebrook, Holden. I don't think Davie has volunteer opportunities. If I'm wrong, Sean, feel free to forward those to me. But I know the others all do, so I can go ahead and when I send out that email, I'll include a little link um, to everybody's volunteer page as well. So those of you that are looking for volunteer opportunities, there's always something out there. Everybody's always looking for volunteers. I mean, that's something you're not going to have a problem with. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next question. Callie, I'll go ahead and start this one with you. We'll just kind of keep going around here. Some of this you might have touched on, but you can elaborate a bit. What skills, experience, or perspectives outside your formal job description, other than disciplines, past work, volunteering, or side projects, have been most valuable to your success so far?
I would say, like especially in my role, because I'm doing a lot of education in schools, and then outreach with the public, and that can be anyone. I do presentations with senior citizens, I do presentations with regular adults, I do presentations with kids and their families, and so I would say a lot of those soft skills have really helped me, and those are the ones that are so hard to put on like a resume or kind of quantify, but just being friendly, finding ways to connect with people. I will say personally, I am really bad at like getting like if we're doing a tabling event, it's really hard. It was hard for me at first to bring people in to that. And so learning how to develop that and finding ways to have a genuine connection so it doesn't feel like salesy was really important. And so I think some of those skills just, working on your poise and how you present yourself and talking with people has been really important. Something I didn't really expect when I started either.
I agree on the soft skills. I think also just being easy to work with and, giving folks the benefit of the doubt. I think moving from college where, you're with a lot of your peers who are the same age as you and maybe have similar experiences to moving to the workplace where, everyone's coming from somewhere different and you've got folks who have a lot more experience and folks who are, have medium experience, really understanding that folks are going to be communicating in different ways and just trying to get along with everyone to a certain degree and being open to feedback and giving feedback can be really valuable.
I think for me, honing in on what I was interested in.
Mm.
So I don't know, makeshift naturalist as a kid, always outside fishing, hunting, or kayaking, um, looking at plants and animals. But then into undergrad and grad school, there's a couple of certifications I did just because I was interested in it. And I think that helped lead to a career later on. But it also helped me hone in on what exactly I wanted to do or could do.
Yeah, going off of that, I think the really cool part about working in any environmental field is a lot of it's connected. So you could start out like I did at Holden. I was a conservation technician. They got to do a bunch of different things like do like invasive control, bird surveys, monitoring for HWA on hemlock trees. So you're out in the field and you're picking up skills with different people that could teach you different things, and then you never know where you're going to end up after that. So you're learning how everything's interconnected and how everything fits together. So there's always room to like discover something you love and expand on that, narrow it down as you go further.
I always harp on writing
Mm.
with people, especially starting out in their career. I think honing that skill set can really help you stand out from others, especially in this field, whether it be in my position, sometimes I'm writing more technical documents, sometimes it's more fun, social media, things like that, being able to switch between the two and just have good prose and things like that is I think it's one of the most important skills you can have in most careers, but in this field too, I think it's vital or should be vital.
Those are all great ideas. Sean, you mentioned, I think you mentioned like some certifications or trainings. Was that you? Which ones do you think helped you
So
in what
the
you're doing now?
two that I had were offered from Midwest Biological Institute. They're down in
Hmm.
Columbus. Um, and they are stream and wetland restoration based. So one is Ohio EPA method that looks at quality of wetlands. So it was a Ohio Rapid Assessment Method or ORAM.
Hmm.
I did that, and there's a primary headwater habitat evaluation index, HHEI. So I had both of those. They were just a couple day classes. They were not cheap as an undergrad. I think they were a couple $100 each, but I really enjoyed them. So it was something I was doing as much for fun as I was to get the certification at the time. But I think those really helped me. Um, Ohio EPA also has some certifications that are called Qualified Data Collector. They could be worth looking into if you're interested in stream or wetland data collection in the future. And they have volunteer opportunities for those as well. Pretty cool.
Those are great ideas. Anybody else have any other trainings that are jumping to the front of your mind as you're listening to Sean here that you think really kind of gave you that edge?
Well, I think my role is a little different, but I think if you're going to be working with kids, or if that's any world, if you could see yourself in the future doing that, I would really recommend. And I know a lot of agencies do them. We offer them every summer, but like the Project Wild, Project Wet, and Project Learning Tree trainings, those have been invaluable. Usually the trainings are very affordable or free, just depending. And so you get these like great curriculum guides, and they're really cool environmental activities. I'll tell you, I've used them with kids. I sometimes adapt them for adult presentations. And they're just a really great thing to have in your back pocket. And also some of that training of like how to lead those activities is helpful.
Great ideas. Those are all super helpful. And if anybody in the chat had any questions, I think we're still looking good here. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on then to some early career challenges. What has been, and Emily, I'll go ahead and start with you on this one. What has been one of the biggest challenges you faced early in your career, and what helped you move forward when things did not go as planned?
I think definitely building a network in a new city can be challenging, and that's something that I found to be really challenging. And, when you don't know anyone, sending out all those cold applications and dealing with rejection can be really tough. And I think one, takeaway from that for me was to, try to remind myself that I am a qualified applicant and I should keep applying to things. And, just because you get rejected from one place, it's not necessarily a reflection on you. There can be hundreds of applicants. I know in some of the hiring searches we do, we get hundreds of applications from tons of fantastic people. And so not letting those rejections get to you, which is hard, but is definitely a takeaway that I had.
Yeah, I could say when I was looking to transition from my previous role, I spent about a year looking and receiving rejections. So it can take quite a while, and sometimes it really like can bog you down for sure. But it's interesting once you get to a certain point, like we're currently hiring for another full-time position, and now seeing the other side of the hiring process and the influx of applicants, like Emily was talking about. It's like, okay, it really wasn't, they didn't just look at you, they had to make the call from X amount. This is a very hyper competitive field. Just got to take your time sometimes. But and I think for the most part, everybody kind of relates to that. Like I would imagine there's very few people that just kind of got their yes right off the bat when they started looking. So I would say just hang in there for sure.
I would-
Something that was, oh, sorry, go
no,
ahead.
you're good. Go.
Okay. Thank you. Something for me, people talk about like imposter syndrome, and maybe you don't feel like you're adept for the job at hand once you do get it. But like you're not going to know everything you need to know starting a job. You're starting that job to learn things, and then once you learn them, you're going to be good at them, and you're going to hone your skills even better. And I just think it's important to, once you get in the position, start asking as many questions as you can to as many people as you can, and then future roles you won't feel that way, and you'll feel better prepared.
Yeah, I agree. And something I read somewhere that really stuck with me is like thinking of kind of like your career trajectory as like a portfolio versus always like a ladder, right? And like you're always constantly adding skills with different jobs that you're taking or positions. And so I think that's really helped me have a good mindset. Sometimes you need to take a position that might not be like your dream position, right? But like you can build things and learn different skills that can lead to something different, which is also really great to keep in mind. So trying to think of it more, yeah, I guess holistically versus just like as like one specific ladder.
I like that.
I agree with what everyone said so far. To add, one of the things that I feel like really helped me stand out in application process looking for a job was to tailor a resume specifically to that role. If you just have the same resume, and a lot of them are online, so it's tricky, but you want to try and highlight exactly what they're asking for that you meet and are that you can show you're the best candidate. I feel like that's something that really helped. And then I agree with what Albert said as well. When you first starting out, you have to learn what you don't know to be able to ask questions about it, and then you can learn from there. And working with senior colleagues, that makes it pretty easy as long as you ask questions.
I think one other thing I was going to touch on, especially earlier in my career, I very much limited myself geographically.
Mhm.
Uh, I was trying to stay local. I was in a serious relationship. I didn't want to move across the country. Uh, so that is a barrier you can very easily place on yourself, and that makes a very large difference. I mean, it's easy to go on like the Texas A&M job board and see 50
Mhm.
positions that you probably would have a decent shot at, but I just am not in this like spot in my life to move to Oregon for a little bit. So I think it's totally fine. I mean, it worked out great for me on both ends, but you will have a harder time if you're looking in one specific spot versus if you have the ability to travel, it can really give you a better chance.
Very
Yeah,
true. And as you all mentioned, it is a very competitive field. So did someone have something else to add?
I was gonna say, like, even now, like, I'm open to like a next opportunity, maybe going somewhere else and stuff. So once you're in a spot, you're never stuck there. So just you're learning from that thing, and then your opportunities present themselves, and you could move out west if you want to. You could go to the ocean, do something cool. So you're not stuck.
I like that. All right. So, Sean, I'll go ahead and start with you on this next one. When you needed support early on, where did it come from and what kind of support made the biggest difference?
I think coworkers that were more knowledgeable in specific tasks was definitely my biggest support. Um, Also clients to some extent. So I'm an environmental consultant, and a lot of the clients are very familiar with what we were doing. And while I was working under someone senior and kind of shadowing them first starting out, um, being able to ask questions about like not only why are we doing it this way, but um, how to do it, why does it matter? Just like the nitty-gritty of like how it was developed, why why exactly are we collecting at this time of year, and just all the questions you can try to think of to help yourself understand um, every aspect of your job.
I can add on that too, because when I started at this current position, I didn't know very much at all about, especially like the ecosystem. I was like new from the desert, and so I think getting comfortable asking questions is really important. And kind of like trying to explain why you're asking them too is helpful. Finding people who seem to be like interested in helping you and kind of sticking with them has also been really helpful for me. Because I know I've asked a lot of questions, but finding those folks that are willing to help you and want to help you grow as a person too. And then also they kind of turn into a mentor situation, which is really great. So and that doesn't always have to be at the position that you're at, but just finding someone who's in a similar role as you. And I'll even say sometimes sending cold emails or cold LinkedIn and saying, wow, your position is so cool. Can we meet up for coffee? Can I take you to coffee and talk about it? That has worked out really well for me as well. So being open to those kinds of things has really helped.
So, what kind of advice do you have? So, I love that you're all talking about questions, and Callie, you specifically mentioned like finding the person to ask questions. So, if we flip this a little bit, like what kind of advice would you have for a supervisor who maybe wants to be able to support early career professionals? What kind of advice would you give to them? How do they become the person people go to ask questions? Like, what made you? How did that person stand out to you?
I think just showing that you're willing to take the time. Sometimes investing in someone, it takes a little bit of time where they're still learning and they're not going to be able to do everything that you tell them right away. But showing folks that like having like a standing meeting with them, or a regular check-in where you can provide support, and making it really clear that you're here to support them, and it's not a burden on you or your workload or anything like that. Can be it can be very meaningful.
I do a weekly check-in with Erica, and it's great. It's just we get on the same page, could address the more pressing issues and projects, um, just sort of get an idea of what each of us is doing for the week or what she expects of me, what I need help with, and I still think it's great. So I'm sure um, people that are just starting out too. And I felt that way when I started this position. It was a bit of a transition. There's a lot of things on my job description that I was not as familiar with compared to some of my other skill set. Um, and I would say between just having that regular check-in, it's pretty open door policy unless she's in a meeting, so that helps too. But just even the patience and flexibility of knowing, like kind of like Emily said, like she invested time in me with confidence that I could get to the point where I was performing without needing assistance. So yeah, I think that that patience and willingness to invest is huge.
I think a big part for me that I got from my supervisors was getting introductions to their network of people because they have a established one further than you have currently, so they could take you along to on trips that they're doing or, meetings and stuff, and you just learn from that way, or maybe let them like attend conferences, things like that. Just get into their network sort of.
I think asking my supervisors for feedback has been really helpful, especially early on. Learning new things. It's like I have no perspective for how long this should take. How am I doing compared to what you'd like it to look like? Um, just set the perspective and keep that door open, keep those ideas flowing instead of just struggling through learning it.
Excellent points from all of you. Anybody
Did
have
have
any
one.
final thoughts? Go ahead.
Slightly different to that from like what can a supervisor do? I had a phenomenal manager when I was on the grass carp team, and aside from being the type of supportive that we just discussed, he was borderline militant on us taking care of ourselves. So it wasn't like, "Hey guys, you should have a sip of water." It was, "I'm going to watch you take a drink of water before we continue because it's 100 degrees out." Um, and I've seen it before, like people just fresh out of college, sometimes people don't take like sunscreen or hydrating as seriously. And when you see people that kind of neglect those and then deal with the side effects, you will be glad somebody hammered it into you to drink lots of water and just take care of yourself in general. Because this field can really mess you up. Melanoma is very much a thing for environmental biologists.
Yeah, I think I would add too, I have really valued supervisors that have put interest in me as a person, not just me as an employee, you know? And so when they take the time to get to know you and they get to know like what do you want to do? Like what is your ultimate, dreams and like how helping you craft that, even if it's not always like perfectly aligned to what your job description is. I have found those are like the lasting relationships. Those are the people that I seek to find no matter where I am. And if you're a supervisor, that's the kind of person that people are drawn to and they want to work with you and learn from you. So
Excellent point. I think you all have some great ideas for both the new professionals as well as those of you that are supervisors, some ways that you can make sure you're supporting your early career professionals and really all professionals. So we'll move on to the next one. I don't remember who I started with on that last one. I think it was you, Sean. So we'll move on to you, Albert. From your perspective as an early career professional, what do supervisors or organizational leaders sometimes underestimate about people early in their careers?
Ooh, it's a tough one.
I did give you a hard one, Albert. Sorry.
No, I think I don't really have to like I feel like my supervisors always were like making sure like I was comfortable with everything and um willing to do the job, which I always was, but maybe like if maybe they think like someone's not like ready to do a certain thing or like don't have the ideal trainings and don't feel comfortable, maybe like helping them ease into it in a way, just like gradually. That's a help or yeah, it's a tough one for me. I'm sorry. But
No, that's okay. And maybe we'll tweak this a little bit because Christy just asked, can you maybe look at it as an experienced candidate transitioning careers? Christy, do you want to unmute yourself and maybe clarify what you mean there?
Sure, yes. So I started out in the environmental field and I did air pollution inspection work. And then I went into administrative work in higher ed for quite some time. And I'm looking to transition back to the environmental field. And I did do AmeriCorps and I'm trying to build up my skill set. I do have HHEI. I have stormwater training too. And I think as an experienced candidate, I'm thinking people might be looking at my resume a little bit differently. So if anybody can speak to that, if you're transitioning and you are an experienced candidate, maybe how that comes across and what they're looking for.
Thanks, Christy.
I would say in my experience, because I was in the classroom for a long time too, so I feel like that was a whole different career, and then I moved to this one. I think just having a fresh perspective, I really kind of leaned into that, and I think that that's a really good way to kind of, bring whatever your experience is into what you're looking for, even if they don't totally relate. So I think 'cause sometimes you you've had experiences, you've done different things, and whether or not it seems like it's going to relate to the role that you might move into, it does help you, pull from your experiences and give you a different outlook, and maybe just different ways to look at problems that come up. So I think that that's something that you can lean into that's definitely worth it.
Thank you.
Well, I could speak to it a little bit because I helped pick Christy for Tinker's Creek. In those positions, I feel like I focus more like core skill sets. So like, does it look like somebody has aptitude for strong writing, strong speaking, um, skills that they'll hit the ground running if we give them the direction for the content we want. So like in a lot of our programming or tabling or things like that, being able to just speak to people or write something or organize something is half the battle. Especially if I can be here as a resource to help somebody catch up to get to that point if they've been out of the field or are doing a career transition. So I think as long as you have notable skill sets in something else that could translate to at least part of whatever you'd be doing for me, I tend not to worry as much about having that strong environmental background. Obviously, it helps if somebody like Christy said, she had the education prior. That obviously is an assistance like that. That's great because you probably at least like kind of know what I'm talking about, even if it's a little rusty. But yeah, just the super core fundamental skills that translate to pretty much any position. If you at least have a good base with that, I think it makes it a lot easier for somebody to invest a little extra time to get you back up to speed.
Matt.
So to kind of build off of that, for those of you that did kind of change your career trajectory maybe a little bit, maybe moved into something a little bit different than what you started out with. What was it? What do you think helped you make that transition? So, I mean, you mentioned those skills that are important, but how do you articulate that before the interview or in the interview? Do you have any suggestions?
I think for me, kind of, and this is hard because we've talked about there's so many candidates, right, that are applying for things. And so I think this is where I kind of took the approach of like transition steps, right, versus just like jumping all into something totally different. I know I have a skill set with working with kids and doing engaging activities and things. And so I didn't jump all the way to a whole different field. I kind of jumped halfway, right? So I jumped into non-formal education where I could still, in interviews, elaborate on, my skills that I brought from the classroom and being able to engage with people. So I think that that's a really good technique maybe to help you find success is thinking about what do you already have in your skill set and then maybe thinking about a transition piece that might not be forever, but it might be a great way, a stepping stone to get to where you ultimately want to go if it's very different from where you're starting.
I think for me, knowing that I like working at the organization I started at was a big thing. So doing a good job in the job I had previously and then applying for the new one at the same organization, they saw that I was really into the place and dedicated to the people there and dedicated to the mission. So that was kind of a big factor in obtaining the new position, I think. I wasn't the one making the decision, obviously, but I think that was a big motivator in their decision making on a candidate.
I like that idea. I think a lot of employers preferentially hire internally. You're already exposed to the candidate. You have an idea of their work ethic. So I think upward mobility in a lot of cases is easier than trying to get your foot in the door with a new organization, if that's the pathway that you want to try and take.
Yeah, even if you're looking for like another organization job, there's plenty of people that I've talked to outside of organization, like partners that we, share our seed and plants with, things like that, and they know me. And if I ever wanted to like apply for a job in a different company than someone I know, there's someone there that knows me and could advocate for me.
Excellent. Going back to what you all talked about earlier with the connections and um, volunteer opportunities, meeting those people. And so it all kind of ties in together. I know Erica also mentioned that kind of having a good story or thread of how you ended up applying for work in the environmental field, if it isn't a clear path. So that's something that
Yeah.
you could include in your cover letter as well. So I think those are all really good ideas there. So we have about 15 minutes left. There's one question I had left here, and then hopefully some of you maybe add some questions or can unmute yourself after this. And whoever wants to jump in on this one, because I've made you all lead on them so far. What advice would you give to someone just entering the environmental field? And what's one thing that supervisors can do to better support early career professionals? Maybe kind of jumping on either side of that.
I think one of the things I received support from supervisors was allowing me to get exposure and try many different aspects of the job, even if it wasn't exactly with my job title. Like, hey, shadow this person who's an expert in this area for a day or a week. Um, because many of those ideas and tasks are like, oh, wow, that's really cool. That's something that I want to work towards being able to do by myself. And on the flip side, you can say, hey, that's not something I'm super interested in. I'm going to try and focus my efforts in this direction.
I know one
Excellent
thing.
point. We learn a lot from what we don't like. Go ahead, Minute. Sorry.
One thing I wrote down was if you can try to implement your own passions into your work. So for example, when I was with Aquadoc, we were primarily doing like lake treatment, spraying for algae and invasive weeds and things like that. But at one point I decided, or I asked if I could make a document that was like a native planting, a native shoreline planting guide. Like I went through, I found pictures, I described all these plants and why they would be good to put on your shoreline for reasons X, Y, and Z. Maybe that's not necessarily a document that they had planned on putting out, but I found a way to find something I cared about, which was native plants, and tweak it so that it fit. It was something printable that the company could use to give to customers, and it still fell within their image. But that's also something that helped with my outreach skills or just my document creation skills, like how I design certain things. And I was beefing up my native plant ID skills and the whole thing. So um, kind of being able to find something you like and finding a way to implement that. In some positions, it's easier than others. I'm like, um, now that I'm with Tinkers, if I mean, as Angela said, I'm a big birder, so if they let me lead birding hikes, that wasn't in my job description, but it's something I could do. It still falls within some of the um, services we offer to communities. But yeah, there's always been times where I tried to worm something in a little extra that I just was actually passionate about that maybe wasn't exactly in my job description. And then you feel a little bit better about the work you're doing because it's something you personally are invested in. It's not just you fulfilling obligations to your employer.
I think, oh, go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead, Emily. No, Emily, please go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say, kind of in the topic of advice, when you're looking at job descriptions, even if you don't meet all of the requirements, you should still apply. Those requirements are secretly just suggestions, and you should absolutely throw your hat in, even if you don't know if you meet all of those things, because that's for the employer to decide if they, want to still hire you or not. And yeah, never discount yourself just because maybe it asks for 5 years of experience and you have three or something like that.
Yeah, I think a good piece of advice is don't be afraid to fail. You're not going to get everything correct the first time, every time. Um, and part of the job is you're learning, so use that opportunity to learn. Don't feel too much pressure to make things perfect and kind of just go with the flow of things and learn along the way and then do a good job once you got it down.
Yeah. And I would add too, one of the best things I feel like I did in my career is within reason if you're able to saying yes to new opportunities. And trying different things that you may not know if you like, or really you don't even know about them. I feel like I learned the most about myself and kind of changed my trajectory when I said yes to an opportunity and that opened a different door. So
I think playing off that too, I'd say I always personally, when I work with people that are maybe just about to graduate college or just out of college. Seasonal gigs. They don't work for everyone. A lot of times that's going to be your best bet when you're building up your just work experience, but they're a really great way to try a lot of different fields without committing to one career path. I mean, I bounced around from fisheries to education to private sector. Like I've been in basically every sector. I have some degree of how it feels to work with each one. I got to handle different types of work in general. And honestly, a lot of the seasonal gigs get to do as much as it's the hard work, a lot of it's a lot of fun too. Like I still remember there was a gig where you started in I don't know Tennessee and just followed the monarchs as they migrated down to South Texas. Like that was your job, just take a road trip and count butterflies. Uh, I'm probably not gonna ever have that pop up on my career trajectory until I retire. So there's a lot of really cool seasonal gigs that will really help with both skill building and just testing the waters, seeing what you like and what you don't like, stuff like that.
Excellent ideas. Any other last minute little tidbits of advice or maybe something supervisors can do to better support early career professionals? Okay, and then someone had a question. If we think we've answered that, I don't know if you can all read Holly's question here. It says, when you're in college, it's difficult to maintain a good work-life balance. How do you establish that for yourself once you're in a professional field? And if applicable in your experience, how may that lend to personal confidence that could translate to your professional relationships?
I think part of it's easy to not take your work home when you're working in environmental field because you've got to be at the site oftentimes to do your job anyway. But I think just try not to take your thoughts and your work home with you. Try to explore what you love on your in your free time and do that. That's your priority to make yourself happy, and then job, career second. And yeah.
Adding to what Albert said, I use a notes app. So if I have a thought that is potentially helpful for work and I'm not at work, I'll jot it down in my notes app. It takes 5 seconds, and then when I'm at work, I can jump back on that task and not lose track of that thought process, that idea.
Anybody else with some advice for a good work-life balance?
I think maybe just to, really clearly communicate your boundaries. If you're not, interested in responding to texts outside of work hours, communicate that to your supervisor in a professional way. And, hopefully supervisors are respecting our boundaries that we set. And, being confident in yourself to be able to say, hey, no, this is a boundary for me. Don't email me, when I'm on vacation, or I won't respond to your email when I'm on vacation, things like that. And that's, totally reasonable to set those sorts of boundaries with the people you work with and with external partners.
Yeah, and I would piggyback off that. I think going into it expecting, and this is the hard thing, I think I remember when coming out of college is you're with a lot of people about the same age as you. And when you get out into any career field, it's a lot of different ages, right? A lot of different life experiences. And so don't assume people have the same boundaries or expectations that you do. And being clear about like your boundaries, like Emily said, is really important to help build that balance from the beginning. And then you're not feeling stressed out or like you don't get upset at because you've already set those at the front end.
I do agree with the point too, especially with a lot of earlier positions. It's kind of hard to take your work home with you when you're like spraying Phragmites because you're done. Now on the flip side, when it comes to, at least in my experience, some of the work-life balance challenges I saw where it's just more a lot of your more field intensive early career positions tend to have longer days. And a lot of times it's kind of hard to break away. I mean, if you're in the middle of a project, you can't say, I mean, well, 5 o'clock, guys, I got to get in the truck, we're going. Like sometimes it's just going to be a long day. So, and it's hard. There are some tough days. Um, I consider that to be good character building at times. Obviously, if it's too much, that there could be other issues like with your position itself. Um, Nothing puts a good day in perspective quite like a 12-hour day in the field. I will say that. I think it's valuable to experience that a few times. It really makes you appreciate. I'm very happy to be sitting in my chair right now. I can think back to all the very hot days I've been in the field.
All excellent advice. We had a few more come in here. Figure out what activities really help you recharge and make sure you're taking time for that regularly, whatever that may be. Erica gave some ideas there. If possible, don't connect your work email to your personal cell phone, or at least don't let it ping you notifications. It can be there in case you really, really need it. Just don't get pinged with those notifications so you're not looking at it. Mel kind of tied on to what you said there. Sean, with mental notes, stay in the field where you left them. Loves the idea of jotting down some notes. And we had a comment here. Where'd it go? With an inspiring panel of young professionals, I was especially struck by the importance of writing and presentation skills. Any final thoughts on the writing and presentation skills? I think those are so important, especially when you get people with a strong science background. Sometimes that doesn't really articulate well into explaining to people who don't know much. So for those of you that don't know me, I do not have a strong science background. So I'm always telling Matt and Erica, okay, explain it like you're talking to me, because I don't know it in the detail and the depth that you know it. So, what are some ways, especially for those of you that started out with a really heavy science background, how did you build those skills?
Hmm. Kind of a cop out, but it sort of took time, in all honesty. Um, and that I think me bouncing around kind of helped too, because I was constantly presenting different different materials to different audiences. So my internship, I was at the visitor services desk, so that's all general public. Or I was doing kids science camps, so then you're talking to kids. Then switch to grad school, and it's all academia and defending your thesis or X, Y, and Z. And then you go to the field crew, and you would think, if I'm electrofishing all day, I don't really have to interact with people, but people at the docks will be like, "What are you doing?" If you're in a labeled government boat, some people automatically assume you're up to no good, and you sometimes have to explain to people what you're doing. No, I'm not. I'm not taking all the game fish out. I'm just shocking carp. Like being able to just kind of explain things to just various different audiences and being kind of forced into those positions really helped to sort of temper how I communicated in different ways. And sometimes it's trial and error. I mean, I think having people you can bounce ideas off of, because like Angela says, sometimes I'll write something and it's probably too technical for what it should be. So having a mix of people to bounce the things you're producing off of is huge.
Excellent point there. I also want to add that you can volunteer in ways that can help with that too. Because I know for example, we have our Watershed Family Fun Day every year, and we had some great young people who helped volunteer at that event and actually worked our table there. And so they had an opportunity to interact with the community in a tabling environment. Like Callie said, it can be hard to figure out how do you table without it seeing kind of salesy, schmoozy, inauthentic. So there's a lot of different ways that you can build those skills, but great ideas. Any last questions? We're at 12:59, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up now. Actually, I didn't realize that hour went really fast. Thank you all so much. You are a very impressive group of young professionals. When I send out the follow-up email with the video link to everyone, I will include the details about our panelists. If you're open to me sharing your email, the 5 of you, if you can just message me privately and let me know that it's okay for me to share that email. So those of you that are entering the workforce, maybe you're in college still or looking to make that transition, if something one of these 5 individuals said really resonated with you and you want to make that connection, please, by all means. I think they reiterated many times about how important the connections are. And so really just kind of meeting people, getting yourself out there. And I liked whoever mentioned, I think it was you, Emily, like, don't take it personally when you get a quote unquote rejection. I'd really like a better word for that, maybe a not selected, because I think it's hard to not take that personally, but it's a competitive field. And so just meet people, get as many experiences as you can. And I think the 5 of you have some really great advice and experiences that you shared today. So thank you very much for being a part of this. Again, you're going to get a survey when you leave, everybody. If you could please take that survey, give us some feedback, and then give us some ideas for future webinars. We're always looking for those. We do have another one next month. It is going to be Sarah Continenza from Food Strong, and she's going to talk a little bit about repurposing soils and using your land for gardening and all that great stuff. So we would love to see you all again next month.